Thank you for joining me. So I'm going to take you through an overview of my PhD study, which is Amazonian Shamanism in Britain, and just talk to you about why using qualitative methods was the more appropriate means of addressing the subject, for me at least. So that's basically what I've just said, to give you an overview. So first of all, let's look at quantitative versus qualitative research. It's not, I'm not here to say one's better than the other. Both have their uses very much. So I just wanted to quickly, I think we all know, it's just a quick table. In the middle there we've got qualitative research, and on the right there quantitative research. And it's just kind of a quick overview of the differences between the two. So quantitative research tends to be larger, randomly selected trial groups, whereas with qualitative research you tend to work with smaller groups of people. So this is one of the arguments, people who are very quantitative minded struggle to see the value of qualitative research because of such small numbers. But very different uses. So quantitative, you'd have a narrow angle lens, test a very specific subject, whereas with qualitative research you're looking much wider at the subject and examining the breadth and depth of the topic. So this little meme here I picked just kind of shows the difference. But again, it depends what your use is really. If you've got a hole and you need to fit a marble in, you're going to want to use quantitative methods, aren't you? Whereas if you're writing a poem, you might want to have a look at some quantitative stuff. And then this is just a kind of diagram, an illustration of some of the things that quantitative research can't do for us. So this is a very good graph chart. It tells us about different types of smoking cessation products and their success rates over different periods. But there's an awful lot that graph's not telling us. For instance, people's reasons for quitting. Did they have any additional support networks, friends, family, colleagues, so on? How many previous attempts did they make at giving up smoking? How did it feel to give up smoking? There's an awful lot of information that graph's not telling us that we can get from qualitative research. So another theme I want to kind of touch on and get you thinking about this point is mimesis, which is basically the phenomenon of, I forgot the word I'm looking for, imitation. I'm just went blank. So basically the phenomenon of imitation. And Aristotle and Plato are both kind of credited for this. Aristotle in particular claimed that people are inherently mimetic beings containing within a drive an impulse to imitate and capture reality through art. So it's kind of the thought I want to sit with. And in that, look at a few different things which kind of food for thought at this time. So firstly, I've got here representing cultural appropriation. I think this is a very important topic. It's a topic that's grown independently, a conversation that's grown independently with my research along the duration of my research. I'm part-time researcher, so I've been doing this for about 5.5 years now, and the discussion about cultural appropriation has got much louder in that time. So it's really kind of been integrated into my research later because of kind of the noise really. So I wanted to look at learning. This dance here is to represent learning. Learning is something that, you know, we rely on copying each other and mimicking each other to learn as adults, as children. I've chose dance here to represent this specifically because it's quite widely accepted with dance that, you know, we learn new dance forms as adults, but it's quite widely accepted that we'll step into cultures outside of our own to do that, and, you know, it's never been seen as an issue. So obviously that is a form of cultural appropriation. I'll come back to that bit actually. And this is Zach De La Rocha, anyone knows Rage Against the Machine, a favourite band of mine that I've used to represent cultural cohesion, which is like the other side of this argument. And I find myself getting embroiled in discussions, arguments on Facebook about cultural appropriation, and people really not seeing the difference between cultural cohesion and cultural appropriation. And with cultural cohesion, you see different cultures coming together to create something new. So with the band Rage Against the Machine, you've got hip hop and you've got rock metal that come together, create something new, and that's just kind of showing my age that I've picked them as an example to do that. And I can't talk about Mimesis without talking about memes, you know, everybody loves memes, and for me I just included this because it's part of the topic, and you know, for me I think it's amazing that we create instantaneous global communication, and from that we create memes. Like, you know, this illustrates that innate need to kind of replicate and make our own, replicate something and make it our own. So I just want you to kind of stick with those ideas a little bit. Next theme that runs through my research is obviously imperialism. Don't really need to explain what that is, I hope. Just got a quote here from Said, Edward Said. So Eliot's ideas about complexity of relationship between past and present are particularly suggestive in the debate over the meaning of the word imperialism, a word and an idea today so controversial, so fraught with all sorts of questions, dates, polemics and ideological premises as to nearly resist use altogether. He said that in 1993, and I don't think it really moved anywhere because it's still as kind of a repugnant a subject, really. So I think that kind of still stands. And then Rhizome analysis being the final theme. I'm using, and this is, it comes from Deleuze and Guattari's work in 1,000 Plateaus, and it's the philosophical concept of phenomenon kind of forming networks and webs and shooting off each other. Traditionally in linguistics, kind of botany and those sorts of subjects, we theorise things in trees usually. You know, there's a strong theme down the middle, the trunk down the middle, with branches coming off. And what Deleuze and Guattari argue is that's really not a very useful model, and that actually a rhizome is probably more likely the case. And it comes from the rhizome root system there that you've got, and the root systems link and create little offshoots. That's where it comes from the term. So that's been used in my work throughout. So why? To understand a new cultural offshoot, so what is this Amazonian shamanism in Britain lark all about? To provide rich data, depth of understanding of the subject, to hold a microscope to Amazonian shamanism in this particular landscape, cultural landscape in Britain. Obviously there's a lot of research gone on in the jungle, in situ, but I brought it, wanted to look at it here in a kind of foreign cultural landscape. Raise awareness around the topic, and obviously personal interest. That's why I got into this research. So how am I doing that? I'm creating a tripartite ethnography. So I'm using 3 different forms of ethnography. There are a lot more forms of ethnography available, such as digital ethnography or feminist ethnography. There's all sorts. So I'm using traditional auto and visual. Traditional ethnography, I'm using semi-structured interviews and participant observation. I say using, I've used. Semi-structured interviews, conversational, non-prescriptive. I used 4 themes. I wanted to discuss beliefs, my participants' beliefs. I wanted to discuss their reasons, motives, what value they saw these rituals having in their life, and the impact that they perceived it to have. I had 11 participants. 3 were originally included as case studies, but those case studies fell apart when those participants lost their access to the ayahuasca, so we couldn't really continue, but I kept their original data because it has some interesting insights. They were all British, 1 European lady who did live in England, varied age range, and they were lasted mostly an hour. One was about 20 minutes long and one was about an hour and a half. And then participant observation. So living and doing as participants do, which depends on my understanding of situations as a researcher. So everything's obviously being journaled through my perspective. And it also depends on available resources and opportunity. So, you know, I was virtually almost living with someone at one point. I was living 2 doors away. We spent an awful lot of time together. But that was just because our friendship blossomed, not necessarily because it was a need of the research. Created friendships. It linked obviously very closely to my autoethnography, and everyone knew about my research. So you obviously live in your research. So everyone kind of knew me as a researcher. They knew I was doing this PhD, but hadn't necessarily been explicitly told that they would be involved in the research, because I'm just socialising with people I'd normally socialise with, and you don't kind of repeat that every time you have a conversation. So it meant that some of my accounts had to be limited because they hadn't explicitly been told. So like you know, little anecdotes or things I picked up or along the way. Okay, so then we've got autoethnography. which sort of used Dali's Narcissus there because it can be seen as a bit navel-gazing. You're writing all about yourself, essentially. So autoethnography is basically like an autobiography or memoir, but its focus is on cultural. So I wanted to include this because I was actually a member of the community I was studying prior to being a researcher, and obviously wanted to include my voice and my experiences in it as well, but use that to compare you know, with what my participants are saying and see how I fitted with them, in particular in the original four themes of belief, value, impact and motives. It also, using an ethnography allowed me to be transparent in my research. So Drake here is saying, within a research environment that is also a political environment, the researcher's neutrality is often not desirable and is always unachievable. So obviously that's another kind of big worry that positivist scientists have, is about the lack of objectivity in qualitative research. But you know, this is saying it's actually often that neutrality is not always desirable. So, but I felt it was important to me to be able to expose my own kind of frames of reference and my own bias in this. Obviously, being part of the community beforehand meant that I was obviously pro use of psychedelics, for instance, and all those things. So, so then I used visual ethnography, and this is from, what film is that from? Man with a Movie Camera. That's where that shot's from, frame. And basically, so visual ethnography usually comes in the form of first-person documentary. So it's the integration of documentary methodology with ethnographic methodology. Ethnographies are conducted using visual media, photographs and film clips, also in order to document the analysis more geographically. So, and also with visual ethnography, one of the wonderful things about visual ethnography as a methodology is you can hand over power to your participants for the recording. So, let's say for instance I was in South America with a tribe, I could give them the cameras to film what is important to them, rather than me choosing and picking what it is that gets filmed, which can create some rich and wonderful, beautiful forms of data, but also it could result in 100 pictures of sand or dirt if your participants don't really know how to use the technology that you're giving them. And so, but also, visual ethnography can sometimes be art. Sarah Pink's written here, there's been a long history of use of different art forms, including painting and drawing, as means of both encountering and expressing oneself, and for visual documentary and note-taking in travel diaries. So that's what I wanted to do in my visual ethnography. I didn't want to, filming a AOS which wouldn't really bring us much that we haven't seen already. It was more about bringing art into the project, some creativity into the project, because I wanted again to create a way of triangulating my data, further exploration of emergent themes, to enable creative communication, because I felt by using creative medium and getting my participants use creative medium to communicate with me could help possibly break down some of the barriers that you face in interviews, help them get thinking about what they're saying at a more deeper level. So obviously when you're conversational, you're just answering quite quickly. You've got an hour, so just wanted to kind of give them that space to do that. Obviously it creates visual stimulation, which is great in presentations when you're trying to improve the impact of your research, and it's experimental. So 4 interviewees in my original 11 came back and created contributions for the visual ethnography exercise. And to avoid resource coordination availability issues, it was carried out online, which was very difficult to coordinate. Everyone that was dotted all around the country. And participants were provided with the opportunity to feedback on the analysis that I'd done of their artwork. So I got them to do a number of creative activities through an online forum. So I put this in here because I had to block out someone's name. They were allowed to pick pseudonyms for themselves, avatars for themselves, and that person picked a name that was basically their name with their initial. So I had to block it out. But I did also notice, you see what time they logged on? I'll keep that in for you. So this is exercise 1. What I did is I hid a load of themes underneath spoiler tags in this forum. I said don't uncover them, do them one at a time and give yourself 60 seconds for each theme, and then basically play word association, throw as many words down on the page as you can in that minute about that theme. And this particular one was medicine. And then basically I invited them to then take those words, put them onto like a PowerPoint slide or something. They could use colour, word size, positioning to add, you know, maybe create, if they notice there's themes in the words that they've drawn out, they could use space to illustrate that. This gentleman obviously hasn't done that. It does look like he's used colour to illustrate theme though. So yeah, just some of the words that he came up there: drugs, help, reliable. So it looks like the green here are like positives, death, uncertainty, very negatives. I don't think I figured out what the purple meant, but there's obviously the theme going there. Okay, and then just skipping to exercise 5, there were 5 exercises. Exercise 5 is a typography exercise, and I basically asked participants to pick one word that kind of summarised what they got from Amazonian shamanism, and to use typography, different typefaces, symbols, things like that to add meaning to that word and to illustrate that word. And this gentleman picked healing. Used, you know, probably say that typeface there looks like a vine. Green is often associated with healing, colour of healing and nature. And then what's interesting is these circles behind that he chose to put there. It's obviously illustrating a movement from darkness to light. So obviously healing for him is clearly linked to that idea of moving from darkness to light. There, so okay, and then so what? This is our data. The research led to over 11 hours of interview data. 273 codes were added to the transcripts. These codes were then sorted into categories and used to create a rhizomatic diagram of the relationship between codes, themes and categories, which I'll show you in just a moment. It also led to between 15 to 20 ayahuasca experiences and between 5 to 10 Canva experiences from my participation observation. Okay, so rhizo analysis, just picked this is a quote from one of my participants really, which kind of sums it up lovely. She said, the sooner I think the sooner that people wake up and realise that it's like we were talking about with the synapses and the motor neurons and stuff earlier on, that we're all part of each other, all feeding into each other in some aspects. And you know, when people's minds are cleaner, they're thinking clean, and it's just like lifts everybody else. So she's obviously talking about interconnectivity there, which was why I drew on rhizoanalysis as a way of presenting this work, because it was a very strong theme that's coming through my participants, and you know, in general with the psychedelic experience, people claiming that they feel more connected afterwards. And then, so I just want to show you quickly my post. This is a work in progress, but this is basically what I did with my data, was create this big poster. I don't know how I'm going to get it into my thesis. And so basically these are all the main themes that came out. And we've got something like relationships gained, pre-existing relationships, entrance into participation. So all the themes there, and these are the main themes, and then all these ones in the centre are where they cross into multiple themes and how they link together. So it's just basically the rhizomatic, you know, showing the relationship between the different emergent themes from that data. Thank you. And then mimesis. So this is, I've just read Tausig, Mimesis and Alterity, and this is taken straight from his book. The images are actually from the internet, but I just thought it was a really wonderful thing to include. So we all recognise this here, anyone? His Master's Voice, that's the original painting from one of the most famous logos in history. This lady here is from the Kuna tribe, which I believe are in North America. And I want to draw attention to the thing around her waist here, that's called a molar. And these ladies, all those behind her are all molars, and they spend days and days stitching these. This is like their primary occupation, very, very ingrained in their culture. And then Tausig highlighted this amazing phenomenon that once they'd been visited by anthropologists and been introduced to the gramophone, been introduced to this logo then gets incorporated into one of their molars. So it's very much this mimesis of them copying us. But what we're seeing, obviously, Amazonian shamanism moving to Birmingham, moving to Britain, you know, the Occident is now very much mimicking South America. But I want to obviously do my participants justice. I can't just go, hey, all my participants are horrible cultural appropriators and they're terrible people. It's not. So what I wanted to do was to kind of look at some of their quotes to try and see the level of authenticity in there. So, interesting spiritual development. This one, it's a bit soul cleansing, so that's what I was looking for, soul cleansing, extracting any negative energies that may have been hosting themselves on my being or psyche. So it seems, you know, I don't think that's completely disingenuous. Thoughts on other realms? Oh, this was quite good. If I can go to a new level of consciousness and I can see spirits, I can do clairvoyancy or psychic or telekinesis, that sort of stuff. How many more stages will I need to go to know the lot? Almost a Christ level consciousness is what we'd understand. It's at 12th level of consciousness where we're, of course, moving, and we're moving into the 5th level of consciousness from what I believe. So this guy has obviously got some belief systems in clairvoyancy, psychic, television, not necessarily, he doesn't quote an other realm like we hear is intrinsic to shamanism. Another quote, so dedication to personal development, this person's ego being scrunched up, thrown out the window, and free to become whoever they wanted to be, and essentially reinvented themselves in the new year, see what was really important to them, and to set them apart in their spiritual journey. So definitely a dedication to personal development there. So I don't think it's as cut as dry as saying, hey, you know, this is cultural appropriation, this is disrespectful, this is awful. This gentleman here was talking about becoming a shaman. I said I wouldn't say it was I would say it's a very spiritual thing, but you can't really explain it. I didn't get up one morning and decide to be a shaman, you know what I mean? It was very much a rebirth, a reincarnation. I was reincarnated, it feels like I was always a shaman. So he hasn't just gone, oh yeah, just put that badge on. You know, it most certainly seems a much deeper decision in his life to become a shaman. Let's look back at this subject of imperialism. Okay, and the Western takeover. I want to draw your attention to, I might miss a bit of this, I've got 5 minutes, so I have to really move. So this image has come out recently in ID magazine. Basically, a group of about 100 native people from about 189 countries have gone to the UN and said we want to make cultural appropriation of native cultures illegal, and they're discussing that at the moment. And you can see why when things like this happen. You know, the jumper on the right there was about $3,000, I think it fetched at the most. And this is a native Inuit person whose design has clearly been stolen and didn't get a single penny for that or any acknowledgement for that. So we're looking at, you know, is this a Western takeover? Are we just appropriating it? So beliefs, again, I would say that God is all source. It's just like, in a way, it's everything and nothing. So in a way, when people say you've hallucinated, it's not that you've hallucinated, it's that things are real, it's because you're close to your God self. So these are all very much, it's not, you know, people just going and getting high and going, oh, that was a wicked trick, mate, you know what I mean? It's a little bit deeper than that. Motives, so nothing specific here, didn't have any specific issues, so not everyone's going in, oh, I want to cure my depression or I want to cure my post-traumatic stress or whatever. Value, I feel the way now, it is certainly, I want it to be an ongoing thing. It would be great to get benefit of doing it regularly, like definitely, I mean, I've got once a month in my head, so definitely seems very valuable to this individual, very important, you know, she feels that if she was able to do that monthly, she would definitely get something out of that. Impact, I went back to me, where I was living at the time, and I cried all day long, uncontrollable. I had a sense that because we talked about chakras and stuff, the shaman had said something about unblocking chakras, and ayahuasca can help you do that. Like I had a sense that I had a sort of blockage in my chest or my throat. So definitely cleared something for this gentleman, most certainly impactful, and most certainly seems like very genuine reasons. And then, but not everyone was necessarily involved because they wanted healing or spiritual enlightenment. And then this quote, not necessarily saying he just did it for a drug experience, but it was kind of not specifically healing or spiritual gain. So motive being a lot of literary heroes, so music heroes as well, although I'm not a massive music fan in general. So quite a lot of creativity attached to opening up, I suppose, that kind of opening up and allowing yourself to access different possibilities. So that one reason that's one motivating, that's appealing. So for this post was more about creativity. So not necessarily the drug experience, but it wasn't that kind of depth of kind of needing to have a massive life-changing experience. So there's a massive theme that came out, distrusting Occident medicine. I'm using the term Occident rather than Western, because for me Western doesn't work. If you compare North America to South America, you know, you'd call North America Western, you wouldn't call South, but they're not. It doesn't work for me, so I use the term Occident. Western countries have got this fear of old ancient remedies. They've got this idea that, and in my mind, they bastardise them and strip them down to nothing. So you're getting some chemical, some sort of impact. You're being dumbed down, but you're not being given, you're not being told the full story. So that was one participant's view of Occident medicine. So there's a clear kind of reason as why people are looking for something alternative, illegal, kind of romantic and kind of. So when I come on to the tourism boom, it's been touched on a lot in the conference. Not going to talk about that much because I've got 1 minute left. So the legal landscape, basically since this, like, interest in Amazonian shamanism since the start, there was already interest there at the start of my research, but it's massively boomed. We've had one arrest, one imprisonment in that time for someone distributing ayahuasca. He was practicing as a shaman, not under any religious guise, but the case of Adrian Freeman, which was actually dropped, kind of sent everybody underground and kind of stopped people from hosting ayahuasca rituals, and has made it a lot more difficult to access kind of place, culture, scene, whatever you want to deem it. And then, so I'm going to skip this, skip, we're no time. It's just the advantages and disadvantages.
Get Tony's nourish.
Oh, you're right, thank you, Tony. So, what next? Brexit. Like, you can't, like, I haven't heard anyone mentioning it. I thought everybody would be mentioning Brexit. What happens next? We don't know, do we? We don't know what's going on. At least with religious use of ayahuasca, we're relying on the human rights kind of agreements there, which aren't really being acknowledged in the UK anyway. So the more conservative our politics gets, the harder this battle becomes, because the agreements are actually in place already. We're just not adhering to them. So this was basically what I was saying about it going more underground. Considerations, so human rights agreements can be overridden if, in the UK, if national law can be seen to be protecting the safety of individuals or community or groups, they can override the human rights agreements. But this will point to a need for an agreed system of legislation, regulation, records, so the shaman interviewing their participants before, checking medical histories and that sort of thing, which leads to a paper trail. So while we've got a little bit of a stalemate here, that, you know, shaman don't want to kind of have a paper trail, all this information about their participants while they feel that they're breaking the law, or they feel that they're being seen as breaking the law. But in order to prove that they're not breaking the law, they've got to create this evidence that can then be used against them. So it's a horrible little stalemate that we're in. And then that's just about the landscape of research and crying out for more qualitative research, more ethnography. There's, you know, in higher education, the push in research is for research to be funded that's going to lead to some kind of innovation or some kind of enterprise. It's all about enterprise innovation. Ethnographies don't do that, you know, so the funding isn't there. I've self-funded my PhD, so it's about pushing out the importance of, you know, graphs and charts wouldn't give you the depth of what my participants have been able to tell, the pictures they've been able to paint. I've only been able to give you a snapshot today, but, you know, just kind of push the importance of what we're doing, giving that kind of the rich data that's behind all the statistics. So, and having the two different methodologies work together. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.